Is this one and this one the same?
Yes,
Yeah,
the same. Yes, please.
So that I am able to see whoever wants to go and write what I will say. Come here. Yeah, you can do it. So once I'm done, then I'll ask you. Yes. Yes. Okay, let me check. Yes. They're gone. Yeah. Come down on him. Do not open. Okay. Yeah, you can count me down. Okay. Stand up. 4, 3, 11. Okay. Okay. You understand, right? Okay. Thank you very much, dear colleagues from the media, and in our presence we do have the Permanent Secretary for the Southern Province, as we are here in the provincial capital for the Southern Province here in Choma with the Mayor for Choma, Mr. Javens Moloka, and his Deputy, Mr. Masika. My colleagues from the media, thank you for coming, and to you, our dear countrymen and women and the youth of Zambia, thank you for joining us on ZNBC and other media platforms that you are able to get us through. This afternoon, the government wants to engage the citizens of this country on 3 issues that we feel that government must pronounce itself on. Number 1, the nation will recall that earlier on today, the 3 church mother bodies, the CCZ, the EFZ, and the CCB, have issued a joint statement in which they have expressed 2 concerns. Number 1, the contradictions that are coming out of government arising out of the supposed summoning of Father Chewe Mkosa of Ndola Diocese and the intimidation associated to that summoning. Secondly, the nation will also know that a day or 2 ago, the Oasis Forum was reborn and relaunched, and upon their relaunch have made some staggering demands to their government. Number 3, we have seen, and the nation has seen, sustained attacks, particularly by the opposition, on the institutions of governance of this country, particularly the National Assembly of Zambia, or as we commonly call it, Parliament, which has no capacity to engage the politicians, to engage society in a discourse of explaining itself how it functions. And it being an arm of government, we find ourselves duty-bound to respond to and on the behalf of Parliament regarding a number of allegations that have been leveled towards the National Assembly of Zambia. So, number 1, issue to do with the 3 church mother bodies. I wish to indicate that the government has taken note of the statement issued by the 3 church mother bodies today, the 10th of April 2024, and the contents therein. I'd like to assure the church that your government will ensure that we continue to work together. And in instances of this nature, where there is an apparent misunderstanding, your government is on hand to explain itself to yourselves, because we are accountable. We are an accountable government to its people. Let me therefore indicate that the government takes note of the concerns raised by the 3 church mother bodies regarding the contradictory statements that emanated from the same quarters of government. I want to assure the church that going forward, my ministry will ensure a well-coordinated approach to responding to issues of national importance, particularly those that border on governance and those that border on the church's involvement in the participation of the governance of their country. I want to reiterate the commitment of the President that he is running an open government, meaning the church, civil society, and citizens at large are free to participate in the governance of this country. They are free to make commentaries as they deem it fit, and that the government is not averse to being held accountable and transparent in the management of national affairs. the President has always insisted that we who are privileged to be in public office are servants of the people, and therefore the church, being part of the people and being partners in development, when they comment, we in government should not react violently. I wish, therefore, to indicate that going forward, we will ensure that when there is a matter of national consequence that has arisen, we quickly ensure that we give a coordinated response to avoid this situation where a statement coming from Zambia Police and one coming from the Ministry of Information seem to stand at variance. I want to state here that the executive has no intentions whatsoever to micromanage the operations of Zambia Police, but that the executive, having the mandate from the people of this country and being the ones accountable for what the police do, will from time to time be able to check to ensure that the right things are done. We take responsibility for what has transpired in terms of these two statements. Ordinarily, these two statements should have been speaking to one another because we are one government bus. The police are run by ourselves as executive and the people with the electoral mandate to whom we are held accountable to the citizens of this country. Therefore, the buck stops at us. Whatever transpired, we take responsibility and would like to assure the church and the citizens that we will rectify some of these challenges that have emanated as a result of ensuring that governmental institutions operate autonomously and freely within the realm of the mandate that constitute them as at law established. It is very clear that from time to time, government institutions must talk to each other so that we do not end up in a situation where one government is seen to produce statements speaking to one particular event or occurrence, but carrying different messages. And let me also take this opportunity to thank the church for voicing out through Father Chewe Mkosa and other, clergy who have had the courage to speak out on issues they deem necessary and fit that government needs to be informed about. We are a government that at all times wants to get feedback from the citizens so that we avoid the situation of complacency, seated in a seat of comfort, hearing only that which we choose we must hear, and hear divergent views only when it is too late in the ballot box. We think that it is necessary for the citizens, the church, civil society, to speak to their government, even on things we may not entirely be agreed upon. The church should continue to hold this government accountable. And we truly understand why the church and other civic actors this time round are actively engaging the government. It is because of the history, the recent history we are coming from, one which was intolerant to divergent views, especially those that portrayed the government of the day then as being one that was at variance with the law and or doing certain things that the citizens were not agreed with. We think that this administration will not want to repeat that same course. And the fact that the church and other civic actors are able to quickly make comments on the governance of this country is living testament that there is freedom of expression and speech in this country, which President HH has guaranteed and vowed to defend. And therefore, want to take this opportunity to urge all government functionaries that in whatever they do, they should not be seen to be at variance with the spirit with which the government, and particularly the president, wants to govern this country. Rule of law, respect for human rights, application of the law to maintain law and order in the country reasonably and judiciously, to ensure that arbitrary actions by those holding public office should not begin to infringe upon the freedoms of the citizens that the president says he stands to defend. The president has pronounced himself very clear on these issues, such as the conduct of police and other investigative wings, that before arresting any person, there must be due diligence to ensure that investigations are done to establish a prima facie case that would warrant police or any other relevant authority to take action of arresting or apprehending a suspect, to ensure that innocent citizens are not unnecessarily inconvenienced. So the president has been very, very clear. And so I am sounding this reminder that all government institutions and all public workers under the ambit of the presidential direction should do whatever they are doing within the realm of the law, but paying particular attention to what the president is saying we must all be able to do. It will not do for the president to make public pronouncements promising guaranteed enjoyment of fundamental freedoms and human rights, and other institutions of government are taking away what the president is giving to the public. Let me also take this opportunity to thank Father Chewe Mkosa for his magnanimity to come out in the open and urge all those who wanted to take political mileage and political capital out of this particular situation, that he did not want any entity or individual to politicize this matter. This is how it should be, because this was never a political matter. And those who wanted to jump on this situation have been put to a place where they belong. We saw some lawyer or lawyers volunteering unsolicited legal services to Father Chewe Mkosa, that they were going to be the legal defense team. It is important that politicians should not jump at every occasion to create political capital, particularly to do with issues where the church is involved. Because when the church speaks, even when they have said something we may not agree with as government, we take it that they are speaking as an independent voice for the voiceless. Because citizens who go to church belong to various political affiliation or orientations, but when it comes to church, they all fall under one leadership of the church. And so when that leadership of the church speaks, it does not speak on behalf of a particular political orientation. So we would like to urge that going forward, let the church speak. And if they are speaking to government, government will respond to them, and not for politicians to jump on the bandwagon and begin to politicize a rather non-controversial matter such as the one we are, speaking to. Let me speak to the issue of the Oasis Forum. The Oasis Forum has demanded two things inter alia. One, that government should provide a roadmap for constitutional amendment process. Number two, that government should hold a national referendum that should speak to the amendment of the Bill of Rights. Government's response is as follows. Number one, constitutional amendment roadmap. Currently, constitutional amendment does not sit as one of those top agenda items or priorities on government to-do list. This is because presently, as a nation knows, the country is faced with an unprecedented severe drought which has led to a declaration of national disaster. Meaning, therefore, and it has followed, that the national budget for this year has been consequently affected through realignment of resources from line spending agencies into responding to this national disaster. Therefore, government's priority presently, priority number one, is to mobilize local and international resources directed at responding to this national calamity, particularly in the areas of food, in the areas of water, in the areas of electricity, in the areas of disease control for our livestock. That is a priority of government, and therefore would like to invite the Oasis Forum to join the efforts of government responding to the emergence need of the moment, which is the national disaster. That is where we must place premium as to what must be done. Therefore, presently, there is no known constitutional amendment process that is actively, in motion to warrant that government must provide a roadmap to the same. There is none. So, we cannot provide a roadmap to a constitutional amendment process which is not active. Number two, the issue to do with a referendum. Again, holding a referendum would be a function of a process of constitutional amendment actively in motion, to which there is none. And therefore, calling for a referendum, national referendum, to be held right now, the timing and the happenings don't speak to one another. Until such a time when there will be constitutional amendments actively, subsisting, is when we would reasonably be expected to begin to consider holding of a national referendum. It must also be had in contemplation that a national referendum is bigger than a general election in scope, because the citizens who are called upon to vote in a national referendum are all those citizens who carry a national registration card, not just those who are registered as voters. So the scale and scope of a national referendum is therefore, bigger, and thus to say, the government at that stage would require substantial sums of money to perform a national referendum. We last held a national referendum some 7 years ago, when a national referendum was held in 2016. And that one was held alongside the general election. But when you hold a national referendum as it should be on its own. So, presently, we have already alluded to the fact that there is no active constitutional amendment processes going on that would warrant a referendum to be conducted in Zambia. Lastly, on that issue to do with the demands of our dear colleagues, our friends, the Oasis Forum, is to indicate that constitutional making is not a government program. Constitutional making is a citizen's program. And that is why the Constitution in its preamble says, we the people, through those gathered at the National Assembly, give unto ourselves this Constitution. When that process of constitutional amendments becomes active, it will require that citizens will therefore make proposals that should inform the contents that must be carried along those processes. And lastly, I would like to urge our colleagues, the Oasis Forum, that now that they have just relaunched themselves, we in government would like to encourage them to come up with a new approach since they've just relaunched. And that approach is one which must be in sync with the New Dawn administration, namely an approach of consultation, an approach of engagement, an approach of consensus building, and not confrontation. Because when you hold a briefing and say we are making the following demands to government, we take it that demands can only be made if that government is not willing to listen to you in a conversation. But this is not the type of government. This is a government of conversation with its citizens and institutions of governance. Therefore, let them come up with proposals and engage their government and speak to those proposals rather than coming up with demands that have a tendency to portray that this is confrontation rather than engagement. This administration is an administration of engagement and consensus building for national development. Lastly, the opposition and parliament. The nation will recall that in the last few days and few weeks, there have been incessant, sustained attacks on the House of the People, the National Assembly of Zambia, particularly by the opposition, where they have alleged that Parliament now is intolerant because of the number of opposition members of Parliament who have been suspended. We would like to indicate that government is equally concerned with the manner in which members of Parliament, particularly some of them from the opposition, are conducting business of the people on the floor of the House. The nation will recall that in the 20 years of UPND as opposition, and for most of it the lead opposition in Parliament, the number of members of Parliament who were suspended is less than 20%. The number of members of Parliament who have been suspended in just 2 years, 10 months of our colleagues, the previous administration, being in the opposition. Therefore, it shows a number of things that need to be put right. One of them is the leadership within the rank and file of the opposition. It is for the very first time under the leadership, it is for the very first time that we have witnessed a leader of the opposition leading members of the opposition into performing acts of violating rules and regulations of the House, leading to a suspension. When Honorable Mundubire was first, called for discipline and suspended, he was in his state as leader of the opposition. Now, the nation will recall that we have had leaders of the opposition before, in the names of Honorable Felix Mutati. He was leader of the opposition when MMD lost power. There is no record to show that Honorable Mutati led members of the opposition in Parliament to misconduct themselves as to violate their own rules and regulations, leading to a suspension of a leader of the opposition. There is no such a record. The nation also recall that Honorable Jackie Mwimbu was leader of the opposition. There is no single day or record that Honorable Jackie Mwimbu led the House, particularly members of the opposition, into misconduct as to violate rules of the House, leading to his suspension. He was never suspended, because a leader of the opposition occupies a very special place at Parliament. A leader of the opposition is part of the management of Parliament that oversee the good conduct of business of the House. That is why a leader of the opposition, in terms of government hierarchy, is a constitutional office equated to a full cabinet minister position, and they get the conditions of service of a cabinet minister. Same salary, same motor vehicle, same government driver, same government house, leader of the opposition, and their deputies and whip. They work together with the Speaker and the Speaker's deputies to run the management of affairs of Parliament. So you can see this clear departure, that when we had Honorable Mutati, Honorable Jackie Mwimbu, these two leaders of opposition were never suspended. But this particular one, in no time was suspended. It tells you that there is something here. But again, on a day like today, I wouldn't want to politic, because I understand our colleagues, the previous administration, coming to terms with being in the opposition at a time you didn't plan to be in the opposition. But that does not mean you become unruly on the floor of the House. Look at the number of members of Parliament suspended. And I must declare interest here that I have heard some of them even saying on public media that Honorable Mweetwa was unruly on the floor of the House. Did you ever see him get suspended the way our members in the opposition are being suspended? That is blatant misrepresentation of fact. Because some of us who went to Parliament in 2011, from 2011, I only started debating in 2018. 8 years in the House. And I only got suspended twice. Once in 2017, we were suspended 48 members of Parliament of the UPND for absenteeism on the day actually it's not even 2017, it's 2014, somewhere there, 2012. We are suspended, it's 2012, we are suspended for absenteeism, 48 of us, for not attending the presidential opening of Parliament. 48 of us were absent, and we are suspended for 30 days. We were not suspended for being unruly on the floor of the House. No. For 1 day absenteeism. Yet the rules of Parliament say you can only be suspended for absenteeism if you miss sitting of Parliament for more than 3 days without leave. But we were suspended for 1 day. It was said it had undermined the decorum of the House because that day was a special day when the President was opening Parliament or addressing the nation through Parliament. The second time I was suspended is when, on Prime TV, I said, this Committee of Parliament that is sitting to receive submissions to do with constitutional amendments 2016 is being chaired by somebody who is still too new to chair such an important committee, Raphael Nakachinda. That statement got me suspended from Parliament for 30 days. Those are the only 2 times I was suspended. So, we were disciplined in the opposition. We made sure that our engagement was a contestation of ideas, not physical abuse of presiding officers, not becoming unruly. I wish I was on radio, I would have said, because you can't debate. That was not the issue. Now here is a member of Parliament who is screaming on top of her voice to the President, calling her a liar, and is suspended by the Committee on Privileges. And that committee has equal representation from ruling and opposition. And they all agree to suspend. In the like manner as we have been suspended before. Our members were sitting on those committees and they agree to suspend you because you have violated the rules of the House. And they are parading her all over to say she's a hero of indiscipline. People should look at what has happened before. That's why people say, Chiwa Miragano, Kuluma Mbusi. We were being suspended ourselves. When it is their time to be suspended, they say no. The leadership of Parliament is so intolerant. By the way, the Speaker and the 2 deputies of Parliament do not punish any member. All members you see punished, suspended, or whatever level of punishment are punished by the Committee on Privileges. The Speaker is just given to read the decision of the committee. That is how Parliament works. But now, the leadership of Parliament is being taken to task, being called all sorts of names, in what we have now understood to be a political ploy to undermine institutions of government. And we want to call upon our colleagues in the opposition that we only have one country, and in this country we govern by means of a democracy, which entails that we will have to coexist even when we have divergent views. Those who do not agree with Parliament, who are parliamentarians, they know that you can only challenge Parliament by going to Parliament and not going to radio or TV to denounce Parliament when you know that no one from Parliament will respond to you. Dear colleagues, and those who are watching us through TV and various platforms, we thank you for joining us here live from Choma, and we will be engaging yourselves not too long from now. But before we can actually wind up, I would like the mayor for Choma to make very important statements that affect us, the people of Choma, the southern province, and the country at large.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Afternoon, everyone. Honorable Minister, I just want to make this important announcement for the people of Choma to be aware that everyone has been expectant, asking us when are we going to work on the urban roads. In this year's budget, in the Yellow Book, we were allotted 10 kilometers of urban roads. And last week, we received the consultant. He's in the district. He took possession of the urban roads and is doing particular work, evaluation. After that, they're going to sit down to do the designs and to assess the actual needs of what needs to be done on those roads. Then that document will be taken back to Ministry of Local Government for the process of tendering, so that we can now finally have a contractor on site. So the roads that have been picked out of consensus, Honorable Minister and everyone else. So we are hoping this will answer to the call that we've had, the complaints that we've been receiving. Also, to take advantage of this platform, Honorable Minister, yesterday we witnessed ZNS starting to mill their Eagle brand milling mill from the Choma milling plant. And today, more than 8 outlets in Choma, which had virtually run out of milling mill, are full with the Eagle brand milling mill, which is affordable to the ordinary citizens. They're buying 230 kwacha for breakfast and 190 kwacha for roller meal. That is a 25 kg bag. And also, just to inform the rural populace of Choma that we have selected particular areas where people can also buy a milling meal off town in Masuku, Siaskabole, Batoka, Mbabala, Mapanza, and other far-flung areas. But also, with your indulgence and your instruction, we have dedicated a track, a CDF track for Choma Municipal Council, to help the far-flung areas to do community sales, to help deliver that milling meal to the outlying areas. Equally so, the community sales for maize, after your indulgence, the numbers are increasingly going up. So we're going to have more depots, more than 11. Currently, we're going to have more depots and more quantities of maize being sold to answer to the needs of the people out there. And finally, just to indicate that our rig has started its journey from India. Is destined for Dar es Salaam, and we should be able to now start drilling boreholes within the district for Choma and Mbabala constituency. And the rig will not just come here to park. The two committees, Mbabala and Choma, has put aside resources as per the presidential directive that we realign resources. We've put aside resources to make sure that once the rig arrives, people are able to access that service and get water. That's what I just wanted to indicate. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. That was the mayor for Choma, Mr. Javen Smoloka. And I also just wanted to, on the backdrop of what he has just said about Choma milling, beginning to mill Eagle's brand milling mill, that this milling mill will not just be for Choma district. This mill mill will be for the whole province, and if need be, this milling mill is available for the whole country. It is just an indication that more millers are coming on board the ZNS, milling, allied millers, to ensure that we continue to produce milling mill which is affordable. Let me also clarify one point here, that we have received constant cause of concern from members of the public that there are some unscrupulous traders who will now be going to Choma milling. They go to ZNS Monze and buy milling mill at 230 and 190 respectively, breakfast and roller mill, and then they are going out there to sell at a different price. That is not a government program. That is initiative of individual traders, but we have indicated as government that that is not allowable, and anybody who is aware of people who are selling ZNS branded Eagles brand milling mill at a price that is far different from what has been announced should get to the nearest authorities to report so that action can be taken. So thank you so much, dear colleagues, for the opportunity. Do we have any questions before we sign off? Yes, please. You can come quickly. Quickly. Any other person with a question, you can stand in to appear that we don't have too many questions. Proceed. Proceed.
Michael Nyumbu is my name, from Baita Radio Station within Choma. So we have heard from the mayor that evaluation work are already being done on the construction of township roads here in Choma. My question is, when exactly will government start working on the roads in Choma? And also that road which is branching off from Choma bus station to Champagne Clinic, which is currently in a deplorable state. Does government have any immediate interventions to work on it so that ambulances and other people who take patients to the clinic, they can use it without having any difficulties? Thank you.
There is no other question. Do we have any? Nothing?
Yes. So the process of evaluation has started. In earnest, the works have started. We've started the process. We're waiting for the actual physical works. So between now to actual time of physical works might take between 3 to 5 months because of processes that are sunk in law. So at that point, then we'll have a contractor on site doing actual works. The road leading to the clinic, yes, I agree, it's in a deplorable state. Not too long ago, we were having a chat with the deputy mayor and other people. We intend to do remedial, emergency remedial measures by light grading and a bit of gravity, just to make it usable. Not only that road, other roads in outlying areas, As we speak now, the grader is in Masuku attending to feeder roads. So at the nearest possible time, we should be able to work on that road.
Seem to have another question, please proceed.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Maybe Augustine Katumuru from YGFM Radio. The first question is going out to the mayor. How much will it cost for all the works to do the roads in Choma? The other question goes to the minister. You have made assurances that your government is guaranteeing human rights to the people in terms of freedom of speech. But there is one politician who is outside the country in a perceived exile by the names of Chirufya Tayari. What could be your comment?
Good afternoon, Minister. My name is Mono Hamasugwa from Chikuni Radio. The first question is, well, the country is experiencing a drought, and rightly put, government has realigned the budget. But maybe I would like just to hear from you what government is working on in terms of the short-term measures responding to the situation at hand. Then the next one, also would like to maybe understand whether government has started distributing relief food anywhere across the country.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Mzumba Hangandu from Mweetwa FM radio station. My question goes to the mayor. It is in line with the upgrading or the works to be done on the roads in the urban. We have been told from the past that the drainage that passes through overspill going down Mwapona was to be worked on last year around February, but this is 2024 and we have not heard anything pertaining to that. Now my question is, with the works to be done on the urban roads, is that drainage in any way going to be worked on? Thank you.
Yeah, so the Honorable Minister will answer those questions directed to him. Thereafter, those directed to the Mayor will be answered. After that, the Honorable Minister will sign out.
Thank you very much. Human rights situation. Chirufya Tayari is in exile. First of all, Chirufya Tayari is not in exile. Chirufya Tayari is just in hiding. Because being in exile means you have a good case for which you need to be outside jurisdiction and getting the protection of that other jurisdiction. He is not being protected by any country out there that he should be said to be in exile. He's just in hiding. And he's hiding from the law. So if you are going to break the law, to violate the law, and you are supposed to be made accountable to the law, when you run away, it does not amount to infringement on human rights. We must get this straight. If me here, I break the law, I'm going to defame someone, and the court finds it fit to convict me, then upon realization that I will actually be convicted, I run away. Is that a violation of human rights? It's a court of law. So, let's not mix these things. There is no violation of human rights. He's just running away from being made accountable at law. Remember, rule of law entails that if you are found guilty, you must serve the sentence. He's just running away from that. Nothing more or less than that. No wonder. I have seen on some social media platforms, citizens were laughing at him. To say some of our citizens who have been found guilty, I won't mention some, but 2 examples of ladies, a former minister who is currently serving, having been found wanting of misappropriation of social cash transfer, is serving. So they were saying, now if a lady is serving, she did not run away. Why have you run away, you Chirufya Tayari? So it has nothing to do with human rights. Then what are the short-term measures that government has put in place to mitigate this drought? Here we must be very careful. There are two issues. Number one, there has been this issue to do with challenges to do with access to affordable minimum. It is one thing which the government has been addressing for a while now, arising out of regional demand for either maize or minimum. Now, this drought has compounded the situation we find ourselves in. So what are the immediate measures the government has put in place? Number one, the government has declared a national disaster. By declaration of national disaster, then a window has been opened for two things to happen. Number one, to realign the national budget so that locally available resources that were appropriated by Parliament to be used on specific projects and programs can now be recalled to be redirected into responding to the drought or national disaster. That is an immediate measure of government. And secondly, by that declaration, it opens a window for local and international well-wishers to be able to come to Zambia's aid. Just like we have seen Malawi, Zimbabwe, and I think another country. It is actually, it is panning out to be a regional disaster rather than just a country isolated. So to that end, therefore, the government has put in various measures. Number one, it was anticipated that we will continue to face a maize or mini meal challenge in the country due to the regional demand for mini meal, and therefore the government, through the president, encouraged commercial farmers who had moved away from production of maize into other cash crops to go into planting of early maize, which sometime last month the president went to commence harvest of in Mukushi. And early maize, what's the difference between early maize and winter maize or any other maize? Early maize is planted and specifically irrigated in anticipation that the rain will take over. So that was a measure to ensure that we do have an early harvest before rain-fed maize comes on board, and 146,000 metric tons is being or has been harvested in that particular regard, with on the basis of contract farming, meaning that those farmers, before they went to plant, they had to enter into contract with FRA that upon harvest, FRA will purchase that maize and pay as agreed. That was a governmental measure. Now, as things stand presently, the government is looking into ensuring that FRA, this particular harvest season, moves quickly into the market to ensure that they go ahead of other grain traders so that they can mop the locally produced maize. That is a measure to responding to the drought. Number three, the government has banned not just maize or mini meal export, but also any other byproduct such as maize bran exporting, to ensure that whatever stocks of maize or mini meal we have or related products remain in the country for human and livestock consumption. Those are measures the government is putting in place. Number four, the government has put in place that after assessments, with the deficit that will be arrived at, the government is intending to import, as of last week when we had a meeting at a committee of ministers on disaster response and also at cabinet, the number which is floating is that Zambia should import about 100,000 metric tons, because it is estimated that from the local harvest there could be about 1,750,000 metric tons of maize this particular harvest from the more than 3 million of last year. So that almost 1.1 harvest will leave us a deficit, and that is why the government is intending to import. And so those discussions and decisions have reached an advanced stage, and I'm sure that you will be able to engage the nation probably within this the next few days, because Cabinet sat 2 days ago to make those final decisions, but I cannot be able to share as of now, but in the next few days. The government has also spoken to and engaged banks to give loans at concessional rates for those farmers who want to go into irrigation at small scale level, and such loans to be paid over a period beginning after 3 years from time of acquisition of such a loan. So those are measures that the government is putting in place. When you put all these measures together, the government is planning right now for 15 months in terms of food supplies, in terms of water, in terms of medicines for animals and humans. The government, in realigning the budget, is planning for 15 months. That is to say, as if we are not harvesting in the next 10 months or so. But that is just disaster preparedness. That is what the government is doing for now, and it is hoped that the measures being put in place will yield results, including winter maize, which the defense forces are engaged in. They've already started planting, and last time the president told the nation that he has been advised that the winter maize of the New Deal administration failed, that is Manawasa's administration, because they planted in the cold season, to which maize does not perform. So this time, those who are going into winter maize are being advised that they should wait for the warm weather to come through, then maize is performing. So when you aggregate all these pieces of activities, the government is fully responding, as it were, to this particular disaster situation. So, distribution of relief maize in certain places of the country, yes. Here in Choma, we have received 4,000 times 50 kgs of maize relief, which I'm sure in the next few days will begin to be taken to areas of need on the basis of Food for Work program, in order to direct it to the most vulnerable members of our community. And this is being rolled out to all the parts of the country that are needy for this particular kind of relief arrangements, and that government is still working out certain modalities of how to reach out to the wider community in terms of responding to this drought. And various stakeholders, including the church, are being called upon to participate, so that the food, when the government releases it, it reaches the intended beneficiaries. Mayor, there was a question.
Yes, thank you. Actually, two questions. What is the costs of the 10-kilometer roads? Right now, it would be premature to attach a cost to what the works will be, because that's the work a consultant is doing, to see what standard of road it will go to, what other facets come with it, where do we need a drainage, where do we need street lighting, where do we need the robots, and which those will now come into the grant cost. So it will be premature for us to attach a cost to what is actually in the process. At the time the tender will be awarded, then it will have a cost to it. So that's the work the consultant is doing. The drainage is in Zambia compound going through Mwapona compound. We are supposed to have a concrete drainage there, and that was being funded by KFW, but processes of funds coming from outside ourselves are longer than anticipated. We were given timelines which have been extended. It's not only that drainage, it's also another kilometer of tarmac which is joining Macha Road to the hospital, 2 other bridges that were in part of that package. So until that package is concluded, that's when we'll be sure when works will start on that drainage. But also the CDF committee allotted between 480, 500,000 to do opening of the drainage. And the fact that we're now in the dry season, we're going to finish up to make sure that there's easy flow of water, even if the concrete drainage doesn't come. But there's a resource from the local authority to take care of that through the CDF committee.
Thank you very much. That was the mayor. I want to thank you, dear colleagues from the media, for making it at very short notice. To those who joined us via ZNBC TV1 and other media platforms, we value your time, and we will be on hand to engage with yourselves again on other intriguing national issues. Thank you so much. Signing off from Choma. Hello? Yes. Twazima bya na songo iri live.